der Hoffnung, dass sich immer noch weitere Menschen zuschalten. Schönen guten Morgen. Mein Name ist Juliana Branke. Ich bin die Referentin für internationale Kooperation beim DBV. Wir haben diese Reihe hier eingerichtet, um uns international inspirieren zu lassen zum Thema Bibliotheken als Orte demokratischer Praxis. Heute haben wir zu Besuch Mirjam Zweers aus den Niederlanden. Sie wird sich gleich selber vorstellen. Ich würde einmal noch kurz, bevor ich gleich ins Englische wechsle, wie immer an dieser Stelle den Hinweis geben, wie Sie die Untertitel einschalten, wenn Sie das gerne möchten. Dazu teile ich einmal meinen Bildschirm. Oh nein, jetzt habe ich sie alle verloren, Entschuldigung. Können Sie mir sagen, ob Sie meinen Bildschirm sehen? Ja, okay, ich sehe nicken. Super, danke. Genau, und zwar gehen Sie unten im Menü auf diese 3 Punkte, die Sie relativ weit rechts finden, wo mehr drunter steht, klicken darauf und dann erscheint dort die Option Untertitel und Übersetzung. Sie klicken also sozusagen oder schieben hier den Button bei Übersetzung so, dass er sich aktiviert und können dann als gesprochene Sprache eine Sprache wählen, die Sie gerne möchten. Vermutlich Deutsch. Genau. So I switched to English. Welcome to our online seminar today. As I said, we have today a presenter from the Netherlands, Mirjam Zweers. I'm very happy that you're here, Mirjam, and will introduce us to the democratic code that you've developed. So we discussed that as in the previous sessions, you will give a presentation, you have slides to share, and you will do the presentation in one go. To all the people who are participating in the seminar, you're welcome to ask questions, but we suggest that you wait until the end of the presentation, unless it's a question that's really, really necessary for you to follow the presentation. Then, of course, you can raise your hand or write in the chat. You can ask questions in English or in German. And yeah, so with that, for now, maybe I hand over to you, Mirjam, and invite you to talk to us.
Okay. Hello, guten Morgen. My name is Mirjam Zweers, and as Juliana says, I'm here to explain to you a bit about the process of making the democratic code and putting it into practice. I thank the Deutscher Bibliotheksverband for inviting me. It's really nice that I can talk to you also about this. The democratic code has been in existence since January of last year, which means that we are also in the middle of this implementation process. So there are also a lot of answers I cannot give you, but I will try to explain what we're doing. And I have to apologize in advance that talking about the code is a very verbal exercise. There are a lot of words involved, so I hope I can keep you enthusiastic until after 45 minutes. So a little bit about myself. I am Mirjam Zweers. I've been working in the library sector for 5 years in the Netherlands now. And I work at a provincial supporting institution. And I gather from Juliana that is something that you don't have in Germany. So I'll explain a little bit later about the Dutch system. But what I do is I'm very active in the field of citizenship and the library third place and the library communities and democracy. And I'm very I try to help libraries to innovate. Together with my team, they are 16 people who mainly work in the field of programming and collections. So this hour, I will talk to you a bit about the Dutch system, so you have a bit of context on where this code is landing. The reasons for this code coming into being, the code itself, of course, and the practical guide to implementation that we developed in October. Okay, I will share my screen now and jump to the presentation. Is this visible, Juliana?
Yes.
Yes, great. Okay. Now I have to. Yes, there it is. So the Dutch library system, it's a bit different than the system in Germany, and I'll try to explain very shortly how it works. The Netherlands has 18 million citizens. That's important to know to understand the scale of our sector. We have 131 public library organizations, and of course, the organizations have multiple branches. So that means that we have 800, a bit more, library branches in the Netherlands. And this means that 97% of all municipalities have a library. And we are quite proud of that. We have 8 provincial supporting organizations. One of them I work at, and I'm responsible with my team for the innovation of collection and programming in the provinces of the north and south of Holland. And we have about 40 library organizations in our working area. There is one library lobby organization, and every public library is represented in that organization. We have one 4-year library agenda we set with all the above named organizations, which has been going on, I think, about 8 years, and it has really changed the landscape. We have one royal library which is responsible for the network of library organizations, and one library law. And this coming into being of the library law in 2015 has also made a big change to the library landscape. And I would like to tell you a bit more about this law. Because, as I said, it came into being in 2015 after a big research on the function and impact of the library. This law has set in motion a more societal function for the library. So not just focused on reading and books, but a much broader perspective. We are now working on a new law. It's probably going to be set in motion at the end of 2026. So we're quite far. The law has already been prepared for a year. And I think we will see an even wider perspective being focused on for the next few years. I think the most interesting part about the library law are Articles 4 and 5, and I summarize them for you. I think what's in Article 4 you will recognize. These are the basic values of the public library, and we will also see them in the UNESCO manifest. So you'll probably know these already. But the thing is that in Article 5, the library functions are described in more detail, and what is interesting to see and what really made the change in 2015 is that D and E are introduced, which means that the library really must do more than focus on reading and education, but also on culture, societal movements, meetings, debate, and art and culture in general. Okay. This for the information about the Dutch system. I could tell you a lot more, but I think the focus of this session is on the democratic code. So I'll stick to what we have here. Okay. Towards the code. There were actually two main reasons for starting working on this code. And the first reason, I think, is the most important one, and it's about more and more libraries in the Netherlands having to deal with growing situations of conflict in the library. Conflict that couldn't be solved with house rules about do not eat, do not yell, do not run, that sort of thing. But really conflict that has to do with global and national geopolitical events and situations. I'm very curious if you recognize this. So I would wonder if can people raise their hands who recognize that this is a growing issue in the library? Is that also in Germany the case? Yes.
Yeah, hands are coming up.
Yes, hands are coming up. Okay. Well, I'm glad you recognize this reason, because then you probably also have insight in the situations that occur in the library. Maybe I can name one or two as an example. But for example, there was a library that had a lecture series about climate change. And then this organization emailed the programmer with the question, can we also organize a lecture? And they were called the climate realists. And they wanted to invite a lecturer that was commonly known as someone who denies climate change. And they really had to struggle with what do we do? We want to be neutral and give everyone space, but this is really undermining our reliability, our trustworthiness.
Næste station.
How do we deal with that? But there are also situations, for example, where there was a debate on housing, and one person that had an opinion in the audience stood up and spoke, and was invited to speak, and someone else who had an opposing view started filming that person, which made it very uncomfortable and unsafe for anyone to speak out that didn't agree with the person filming. And that is also an example of such a situation. And I think, judging by the hands, that you will recognize these situations. So this is one reason why we started working on the code as a sort of an extra to house rules, a more detailed extra that has to do with, with rules that need more words than don't make too much noise and don't eat and that sort of thing. The second reason was that in our 4-year agenda that I just mentioned, we decided 1.5 years ago that the library sector would set as its new task the stimulation of democratic and active citizenship. So this became a priority for the next 4 to 8 years. And the question then arises that is it not necessary that we as organizations practice what we preach? So not only stimulating this democratic citizenship, but also living it, doing it ourselves, and being more aware of our own democratic role and responsibility. So that was a second important reason to start with this code. And I don't know how much there is happening in the field of democratic and active citizenship in Germany. So I thought I put in this slide to explain a little bit what we understand. So democratic citizenship is the political and social involvement of citizens within a democratic society. And this includes more than just the right to vote and the possibility to form a political party. But it also means participation in political discussions, understanding and respecting democratic values and the rule of law, and to act accordingly, and contributing to decision-making processes. This democratic citizenship emphasizes the intrinsic relation between citizenship and democracy, and we think that one cannot do without the other. Then there is active citizenship, and this emphasizes involvement and citizen participation to the various social domains, such as politics, socially, culturally, and economically. And this active citizenship is about engagement, so cooperation and creating communities in which people feel responsible for each other and their environment by, for example, volunteering, participation in local politics, and involvement in neighborhood and local communities. So these two main reasons, the occurrence of situations of conflict that the libraries felt ill-equipped to deal with, and this new task of democratic and active citizenships were the main triggers to start with the code. There's one other trigger, and that has to do with neutrality. And I'm really curious if this is the same in Germany. We have a sort of a self-inflicted principle that's called that the library needs to be neutral. It doesn't say anywhere that we need to be neutral, but a lot of library professionals have intrinsically made this a part of their job. Is that something that you also recognize? Could I see some hands? Is that a thing?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay, great. The question arose, and this is a more abstract reason for the code, but the question arose if this chosen value to be neutral still suits us. Does it work in this new situation that we're in? So the questions arose, do we need to define the borders that we do not want to cross? Because if you're neutral, you're sort of, you don't have a standpoint. Everything goes. But of course, the practice shows that does not longer work. And also in relation to the Constitution, if we're entirely neutral, does that mean that we defend or not defend the Constitution? Can people step over those boundaries? So that is a question that is still very much going on, and even in relation to activism in the library, for example, there are libraries that go far beyond neutrality. There are libraries that really stay with that principle, and there are libraries who are rethinking this in the sense that they want to use the code to say, okay, we want to invite everyone, so we're a place for everyone, but there are boundaries that we want to adhere to, and we ask our public to also do that. So that was a third reason, more on the background, that was a trigger for the coming into being of this code. Okay. A short information about the process and the participation within this coming into being of the code. So we had at the end of 2024 a meeting with about 30 libraries, the Royal Library, a lot of these provincial supporting organizations, and this was a sort of a mini conference on neutrality, democracy, and the library. Part of the conference was a session where groups of library professionals discussed the situations in which they felt conflict within the organization or among the public, and they had doubts about how to handle this. For example, and that was very much alive at that moment, how to deal with paying attention to the situation in Palestine, which probably you also recognize. So there was a lot of discussion about this, and during this discussion we asked the group how they felt about having a basic document with a sort of a shared standpoint to use as a guide. And the reaction was so overwhelming that we started that day to make a very first draft of a rudimental draft of the code. And in the month following, together with scholar Bram Eidhoef, who studied democratic values in schools and public life, we invited two social designers to help us and library professionals. And in this group, we discussed and added to this rudimental draft to make it, to give it more detail. And after that, I worked with Bram on structuring this and using also sources like the Code of Bordeaux, which is the sort of the democratic code used by journalists, and a few other documents that also do the same thing for other sectors. And we published it in the end in January of 25. Okay. Now a bit more on the code itself. So it's quite a short document. It's 3 pages in which we describe 8 principles. Principle 1 to 4 are about inclusivity. Principle 5 and 6 are on open and safeness. And principle 7 and 8 are about being learning and being on the move. Furthermore, in the code, you will find 4 rules of engagement and 6 boundaries, or 6 rules that describe the limits. I will run by all the elements, but you will find the full version in the available German translation. So this is a shortened version. Otherwise, my slides would be full of words, which I already warned you about. So please look up the German full version, the full translation. So important to know is that this code is made with dozens of people working in a variety of roles in the library industry, from people working on behind the desk to the directors. We have been writing this, being informed about all these kind of situations that occur in the library. So I think we collected maybe 40 or 50 descriptions of situations in which libraries felt ill-equipped to deal with the conflict that existed. And what we ended up with was a set of values and principles that we can use in strengthening this democracy and citizenship, so that we can explain and substantiate our choices better, that we can make it clear what we stand for as a team. And that is very important, because that's a very important signal that we also got, that people felt quite alone in these conflict situations, because it was not something discussed with colleagues. It was discussed as a nuisance, but not discussed as how do we feel about this? How can we describe what our position is? So this making it clear as a team was very important. And the code also is very handy to deal with criticism afterwards. So you can explain why you did things because you already thought about it. And the third reason, the outside world better understands that the library is not biased, but there are boundaries that we have set. Okay. We also included this in the code. It is very important to know that this is not a blueprint that commits any institution to activities. I mean, you can make your own choices within this code. And we also encourage libraries to, when they start implementing the code, to change it to their needs. For example, it can be very good to change words to words that are used in the community or in the region, to make things sharper or less, because it doesn't occur in this library, so that it really feels like something that is part of the library organization that it's formed. The code does not answer every question. There are still situations that you need to think about how to react to. So judgment remains necessary. And in that sense, it's also not an alternative to professionalism. And well, the fourth I already mentioned. Okay, so we'll start with the 8 principles. This is the 0 principle, and it's about strengthening citizenship and democracy. And of course, this takes many forms. Together, we learn how to speak out and how to put ourselves in someone else's shoes. More extensively, this means that you can learn how social and political issues work, or how you make a difference in a project for the neighborhood, this district, or any other community. And together, so the audience and the library, we decipher how democracy works. For example, by talking about the lack of affordable housing in the neighborhood, or through an election debate. We offer a stage and a connecting platform for people, discussions, projects, programs. And in this way, we can practice and exercise our own citizenship, so that of the library and that of the public. And we like to offer space and set boundaries. And we do this by using the following principles. The first 4 are about inclusivity. We are inclusive. A library that is for everyone. We are public, and that means that everyone is welcome. You can enter our house without paying. All those different people together, that's a strength, and can sometimes also shave. That is a very important understanding within this code, that the code is not meant to make it comfortable. It will not be comfortable, because a lot of what we describe is actually also dealing with differences of opinion. So this first one furthermore means that because opinions can clash, and because you can't make your voice heard and listen at the same time, we cherish the abrasive conversation. So the uncomfortable conversation where conflict is also sometimes a part. We cherish freedom, but we also set boundaries, because we stand for connection and give everyone space. If you bother other visitors or do not follow the rules, we will do our best to find a solution together, so that you can come in the future. And we believe in people, giving people a second chance. The second one is about equal opportunities. In the Netherlands, not everyone has the same amount of money or opportunities, and the library is a place where we work on equal opportunities. So this means that you can learn the Dutch language or become digitally skilled. And this also applies to your citizenship and to learning about democracy. There too, we make an extra effort for people and groups who have had fewer democratic opportunities. So the next 2 are about impartialness, independence, and curiosity. The third, independence and impartiality in the activities we organize to strengthen citizenship and democracy. So it is very important in this code to mention that we are not guided by party political, religious, or commercial interests. This will not, I think this is also in practice now at a lot of libraries. But that does not mean that we are neutral. We stand for the values in this democratic code, and we stand for democracy, for human rights, and for the rule of law. We are not guided by individual preferences, but by the general interests. And visitors and partners we ask them for their input, but decide for ourselves. Okay, 4 is about facts and stories. This was a very difficult one in coming to the code. And I think you will recognize it, because how do we talk about what is true? Something being true was a discussion that kept us busy, I think, half day. And we're still rethinking this one. And I do not, I'm not sure, maybe we will change it in the coming year. Because now it says the following. We are for facts and for stories. The library is a place where you can expect stories, independent and objective information, and alternative perspectives. We will tell you if these facts aren't clear yet, or provide context where necessary, so that you can form and substantiate your own opinion or adjust it. This is desperately needed in a society in which a position is taken quickly and fake news circulates. The reason why this was such a difficult part was because there is difference of opinion about if the library can decide if something is trustworthy or true, or do we just need to say we give you everything and you make up your own mind. And I talked to a few philosophers afterwards, and they said, well, the thing is that if you decide as a library what is trustworthy or true, you also say, I don't trust you, audience member, to make up your own mind, because I already decided for you. So the thing that we are now saying and putting into practice is if there are, for example, very difficult situations in the sense that there is a title that you want to acquire or not acquire because you have doubts about if it's fake news or if it can be detrimental to people's health, for example. I'm sure that you will know these examples as well. That libraries used to decide, okay, then we're not buying it. But now sometimes they set up a program to discuss this with members of the audience. How do you feel about this? Should we put this on the shelves? If we do we have to do we have to give you context? What do you think about this? And actually, that doesn't immediately give an answer what to do, but it does give us insight in how the audience feels about these kind of issues, about the library judging in advance if something should be accessible. Okay. 5 and 6 are about being open and safe. So 5 is about meeting and exchange on the basis of equality, and the library is for everyone. We are open and inclusive. We protect free speech. And this also means that we make room for different stories, emotions, and perspective, and that people are allowed to differ and change their opinions and positions. They are allowed to speak and they are allowed to listen. And this polyphony is part of democracy, this pluralism. And it results often in abrasive conversations in which we do not always come to a solution or agree with each other. Then we go on to 6, the social and physical safety. The library is for everyone. Again, this is why we have an eye for the social and physical safety of everyone, our visitors, our guests, and our colleagues. The last 2 principles are about being on the move and learning. And these are quite important because we need to be transparent about what we're doing, but we also need to be transparent about that we do not always know exactly what to do and we will make mistakes. So 7, we wrote in for the library itself that you can be proud of just starting. Sometimes a subject is difficult or big, and then we ask ourselves what can be the first small step that we can take in this issue, and that we are on the move is enough. And the 8th is about transparency and learning. We explain what we stand for. We are publicly accountable, so you can ask us why we make choices, but we also learn, make mistakes, and get better. So that makes us vulnerable. And we actually ask the same of our audience. to also embrace being vulnerable. Okay, these are the rules of engagement, and they sound very simple, but it was clear that it was necessary to add these to the code. The first one is about do not just come to convince someone, listen carefully, try to understand what perspective the other person has and why that is. The third one is about that you're welcome to speak and share and experience, even if your story shapes. So even if it leads to conflicts or uncomfortableness, because shaping also means that it brings sharpness to the discussion. So what are we talking about? Do we agree? Are there other perspectives? What do they look like? Because together we know more and we get further. That is the idea behind that. So the third one is look around you. This is about inclusivity. Make sure that voices there that are not heard enough or are not heard at all, that everyone puts in an effort to make them heard, so that this plurality, this polyphony is strengthened. Because actually that is the basis of at least our law, that democracy is not about being able to express that everyone can express their personal opinion, but about safeguarding plurality, so that there are a lot of opinions. That is the most important goal. The fourth rule is dare to share your doubts. And this has something to do with that vulnerability that we ask people to do. The most beautiful things are created by exploring them together. Okay, then last thing in the code are the boundaries. And these are about 6 points: threatening language, etc., because the library is a place where everyone should be able to feel safe. 2, hate speech, etc., because freedom of speech is not unlimited, and because the library is a place where everyone should be able to feel safe. 3, intolerance, racism, and discrimination, because we believe in equality and we stand for the social and physical safety of every visitor. 4, spreading falsehoods, because we believe in the importance of facts as a starting point for democratic coexistence. And of course, a person can make mistakes. It may be abrasive and discussions can occasionally be a bit uncomfortable, but deliberately continuing to spread falsehoods cannot be without consequences. Where possible, we do like to keep talking. 5 is about being a nuisance to others. I had the feeling that in the translation, nuisance was a bit soft, but I couldn't find the right word. I hope in German it's better. Because this is about, we can tolerate a lot from each other in an open society, such as the other person has a different perspective or becomes emotional. But as soon as you are a nuisance to other visitors, we draw a line. Then we will look for a solution together so that you can come in the future. And the last one, when polyphony disappears. Because the target group takes over or visitors do not give space to the stories, positions, and perspectives of other visitors. Because an open and democratic society needs different perspectives and polyphony. Oh, this sort of a... Okay. This is the code. A lot of words, and there are even more, as you will see in the German translation. Important to add is that we made this free of use. So everyone can take it off the internet and make it their own. And we don't care if you change it. We actually want you to change it. So what happened? We publicized it in January, and we spent the next half year talking about it everywhere to all kinds of library professionals in the Netherlands. And luckily, almost all of them recognized the need for such a code. But it became clear that not counting circa 5 bigger libraries, that most libraries felt very ill-equipped to put this code into practice. Because how do you do that? We have these 3 pages full of words, and most of them they agree with, but how do you put this into practice so that it does work as it's supposed to work? So that made us decide to write a practical guide to make it more so that people could see how it would work in their domain. So the domain of collection, or the domain of programming, or education, or marketing and communication, or how does it work for the director? What elements should you take out if you work in these domains to be able to put it into practice? So the practical guide. This is a very short summary I will give you, because there in the practical guide there are a lot of examples how you can put it into practice. And I will highlight some of the tips and tricks so you will get an idea of what we were thinking about. Okay. So there are 3 main reasons that if you're, this was also written with the idea, there is someone at a library who thinks, oh, that democratic code is really a good idea, I need it. But how do you explain this to the rest of your organization that this is a good idea? Well, the first is to identify the reason why you want to work with the code. And we identified 3 main reasons that we saw at a lot of libraries. And the first is that the social safety of your visitors and your colleagues is sometimes at sudden moments under pressure. And that is, for example, the example I gave about the filming during a debate. That can be very unsafe, and you have to react in the moment. There is something you need to do exactly at that time. Reason 2 is has to do with this citizenship, democratic citizenship that we're working on with the audience. So when we pay specific attention to citizenship and democracy, we also sometimes have to do with unpleasant reactions or interactions. That comes with the territory. And reason 3 could be we want to work more and more closely on citizenship and democracy. And then you can guess that probably reason 2 will follow. So for each of these examples, the democratic can help you to better set an example to show how to do this democratic working together, to be more confident as an organization, because it's a shared view and it's something that you discuss together. So you will know at the end of the implementation phase that your colleague, although they might have a different personal opinion, that your professional opinion is the same on how to deal with certain situations. And that makes it also that you can address these situations, which can be quite stressful, with much more ease and peace of mind. And the third is it can help you just to fulfill your democratic function better. Okay. What is the value? What will it deliver once you've put it into practice? Well, knowing what you stand for as a library, having a common language for what you stand for. It's easier to communicate with each other about complex incidents and situations. You'll be able to draw a common line. For example, set a set of rules that you want to implement during debates. You're better prepared so that the chance of escalation is reduced, because you're more at ease and you know in advance how you will react to some situations. And that's why you can also be more courageous. You can take risks because you have thought about what might happen. And this last one is to feel confident with friction. Because as I said before, this code will not prevent friction. It will actually make you embrace it, as odd as that sounds. Okay, some tips and tricks that the practical guide gives for the different domains. So marketing and communication. There are three tips that we shared, and it's about publishing your own democratic code. So make it visible for your audience and not just for the internal organization. And let every point of that code, or the ones that you find particularly important, come back in your communication. So tell people, we decided to do this or pay attention to that. And that is also because in our code, it says blah, blah, blah. So not repeating the whole code, but really finding the elements that combine with the choices you make at that moment and showing it. And the third tip is, in the event of incidents, continue to communicate about these principles and values. That really helps. In addition to referring to the Democratic Code, the Marketing and Communication Department can, of course, also emphasize that offering a stage is different from taking a position. That freedom of expression is different from the right to a stage, because that also quite often happens, that people feel that they have a right to do something at the library. Facilitating a group is different from supporting their agenda. Standing for democracy is different from a party political position. And we all have to abide by the law and have no discrimination or hatred. The library also likes to teach and always provide critical and constructive feedback. Is welcome as long as it is shared in a decent way. So these are also tips that are good to refer to, that are not mentioned in the Democratic Code. Okay, so the front office. I don't know if do you call it that, Juliana, in Germany?
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So the front office is a place where all these things come together, and most people who work there have to decide what to say or how to react in a very short time. So we advise them to have a super simple and abbreviated version of the code that should be helpful to deal with everyday situations. And really give you the words to explain it to the person that's standing in front of you. And that means, for example, these three: the library is a safe place, therefore we do not accept threatening language, intimidation, abuse and violence, etc. Or the library is a place where everyone is welcome, therefore we do not accept intolerance, racism and discrimination. Or the library is a place where you have peace and space, therefore we do not accept. These give words to deal with in situations where it becomes uncomfortable. And regrettably, I think that the front office professionals have to deal with this on a daily basis. So probably if you make it short and super simple, they will be able to and they will use it quite often, that in the end it will be part of their vocabulary. Okay. Collection is also a domain for which the Democratic Code is very interesting and helpful. And we have set these 4 ideas, of which we say be very clear about that in communicating with your audience. That adding a book to the collection is different from being a library supporting the content of the book. That it can be valuable to take note of stories, statements, or events that we do not find socially acceptable. So gaining knowledge is not the same as underlining or being in agreement with that information. And it is precisely that we learn to recognize these acceptability or non-acceptability and learn to deal with it. Also, keep in mind that visitors are generally not naive and that they don't believe everything that is written in a book. So it's good to start with the trustworthiness of each other as a professional, but also your receiving party, so the audience. And the library stimulates critical thinking by being a place for different stories and perspectives, as the collection must show that there are multiple visions on issues. And we gave a very practical tip, because it's good to develop principles on how you acquire the collection. And one easy way to do that is to describe the books that are in your white, black, and gray category. And that means white, that are the titles that, sure, you need to have. Black are the titles, no, really, we don't want to have. And gray are the titles that you're doubting about. And discuss with your colleagues if you agree on what's in the gray, the white, and the black the categories. When you've agreed, describe the books in the white and the black category. This will define what you think is and is not acceptable in the collection. And then there is the gray categories. And it's good to for this category, make a list of pros and cons. So what are the reasons why you should, and what are the reasons why you shouldn't want them on your shelves? And can you think of things to add to a title that do make it possible to add them to your collection? And this is an exercise that a lot of collection departments in the Netherlands are doing at the moment. And it is really helping them to making it less about the person who is acquiring the collection and more about the library as a whole. How do we feel about our collection? So it really gives these professionals principles to work by. Okay. For the program, I'm just checking the time. Oh, yes. Okay. We recommend making a flow chart, and some of you might already know this and do this, but in the Netherlands it was quite new to think about how do you decide if an organization can be a part of your platform or can do something at your platform. And then the questions to ask is the initiator honest, non-violent, reliable? Is there a distinction made between facts and positions? And is it publicly accessible? Is there room for dialogue? Well, that sort of thing. For the management team, we made a list of tips, and I will shortly go through them. So internal polyphony, becoming practiced in conducting this polyphonic conversation internally, helps you also to being able to deal with it outside. So start by doing it on the inside. Asking yourself the question, is this a problem or an opportunity for the library? Because things might seem too controversial, but if you think about which form you choose, for example, not a debate, but doing an informative or a connecting meeting can also be an opportunity to talk about a controversial subject. Ownership without full consensus. You have to mention as a management team member that all perspectives and experiences are welcome in the exploratory phase, but that you ultimately want to agree on a common line. And that is a democratic code that you've changed for your own organization. So everyone can distinguish between personal opinion and professional attitude. Safety. Safety is very important, also in the code, but at the same time, safety should not be used as an excuse not to face discomfort. And I've been mentioning this discomfort a few times. It's very important to accept that this is part of the function of the library. Having a good view of what may happen and good agreements about escalation. We become braver if we're well prepared. That is actually the message. Incorporating the democratic code into policy and choices. Well, that is something that is always a good idea. Keeping the democratic code alive. It is good to look at the code every once in a while and see, is it still working for us? Is it doing what it was supposed to be doing? And exercising this together. Okay. My last point is about how to put this into practice. So we have been helping a few libraries putting this into practice. And there are actually 4 steps. We decided with a few libraries that it was best to start a project group that would look at the code and change it to the organization in question. To present this to the rest of the organization and explore the text together. So in a very large session, talk about what does it say here? What are we choosing for? The third step is not implementing the code for the whole organization, but choosing 2 domains that are enthusiastic about it and try to put it into practice there. And showing at the end, how does it work for us? Showing that to your other colleagues. And then it can be time to see if you can do it as an organization as a whole. Yeah, so there are a few, I think 40 libraries who are very active working with the democratic code, but haven't implemented it totally yet. And we are starting learning groups with other libraries at the moment so that they can learn from each other in implementing it. But we will see, I think in the coming months, the first libraries who really have implemented it, published it on their websites, so we can learn from that. But these libraries are already saying that it has had enormous benefits because it meant speaking to each other about this topic and the involvement of a shared position. So we hope that soon this will lead to more enthusiastic libraries who feel better equipped to deal with some of the situations that they have to deal with at the moment. I think that is it.
Thank you very much, Mirjam. Yeah, as you said, it was a lot of words,
Yes.
not as many pictures as in the last sessions, but we did not lose too many participants. So I think you managed to keep it interesting and entertaining enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote down so many things, and I think there are so many interesting points that you made, especially about how this document is, it's a learning thing, and you keep learning. I thought it was very interesting. Also about being vulnerable, taking small steps, being on the move is better than not doing anything at all. The tips for management, the personal opinion versus professional opinion. I think all these things are something that resonates with many libraries in Germany as well.
I'm glad.
But yeah, I would open the floor to questions or comments, if there are any. Johanna.
Yes, thank you. And thank you so much again for the presentation, Mirjam. I'm working for the Berlin Public Libraries, which have about like 1,000 employees, I'd say, in total. And we actually do have a common understanding of democracy and strengthening democracy here, but focused more on the management board, like which resources I need to develop and stuff. And now we just decided last week to go ahead and work on a mission statement with like all our employees, meaning addressing 1,000 people to get involved in this process. So what strikes me, or what I would like to know, starting today again with your process, what would you do differently maybe, or what were the biggest challenges for you in this process?
Well, when we started working with libraries, helping them to implement this code, we thought it would be best to do it with the library as a whole. So we started with sessions with all the colleagues, and we started with, okay, we're just going to in groups read this code, discuss it. What does it say? Do we understand it? Do we agree, or are there a lot of disagreements? And the next step would be gathering situations in which it would help, so that we could convince, or maybe convince is not the right word, but make people enthusiastic about, oh yes, we do have situations in my professional domain and in the domain of the public, of the library in general, that could use the democratic code. And I think we changed our mind about that because it was clear that we would not be able to convince everyone in a session like that. There would be a lot of people who thought, what are we doing? Because they have less direct contact with the situations that might need a democratic code. So our decision was, after a few experiments, to really start with domains that have a lot of practical examples and really feel the need to implement this. And start there and let them work on it for a year. So also develop tools. For example, the collection department developed principles on how to deal with this, but also develop programs on how to discuss the things that they didn't know yet. So the learning phase started happening. And now we are at the point that after a year, these departments can share their knowledge with the rest of the library. And then it becomes much more feasible, and it triggers the imagination, because people can see, oh, this can mean this instead of these. Because as I said at the start, it's a lot of words. You need them in the end, but it's a lot of words to start with. So that's something we changed our mind about a month ago, I think. Yeah.
Okay, there's a question in the chat as well, so I will read it out. Thank you for the interesting presentation. An issue I see is that what is considered a different opinion is oftentimes difficult to distinguish from discrimination, racism, homophobia, etc.
Yeah.
People with these opinions may feel like their freedom of speech is being threatened if their standpoints are not included in a discussion. How do you deal with this?
Yes, well, that is certainly an important issue. I think I had something similar a few months ago. I talked to a library professional, and she said to me, well, I work in a district where there's a lot of right-wing voting. And this all sounds way too left for me, and I can't. I can't explain this to my district, to the people in my library. They won't understand, because they will feel that this is a political standpoint. And actually, that is also the reaction of people who feel that their freedom of expression is limited by this code, for example, because they have the feeling that they can say everything. And of course, it is difficult to have this conversation, but we do have the law, which is the basis for our living together in the Netherlands, but also in Germany. And it says that racism can't be a part of this society. So it's not, and in that law, it also says there's freedom of speech. So that is something that can be combined. You can have freedom of speech, but there are also boundaries that are set. And I think it is important to show that that is not a choice made by the library. That is a choice that we have made as a society, that this is the basis on which we live together. Because otherwise it does become political, or in this case, someone has the feeling you are making a choice for what is an acceptable opinion or not. But actually, the library doesn't make that choice. Our law has made that choice. Our system has made that choice. We are a democracy, and that is what is within our rights. Yeah. But I'm not saying that it's an easy conversation.
Yeah. I have another question. Did I understand correctly that all provincial support organizations were involved in the creation of this code, or were they just together in that very first meeting where you decided that it needed?
They were together in the very first meeting, and then in the second meeting, I represented one of the provincial organizations, and there was one other who also thought this has priority. We need to focus on this. But the others have embraced it in the last year. So it was it was clear that everyone saw why this was needed. Yeah.
And were there any academic libraries involved as well, or do you know if academic libraries are making use of the code?
Well, they have asked me about it, but they haven't yet. And actually, I talked about speaking to a few philosophers in the last year about this code, but also about democracy and neutrality and that sort of subject. And they also mentioned that, well, you have journalism, the press, and science, and they see that the library in the Netherlands, at least, is far ahead in the sense that they are daring to open up this discussion about trusting your audience, actually, also about trusting them to make up their own mind and showing this plurality of visions and perspectives, and dealing differently with the way that information is produced nowadays. And that's science, and that also involves the scientific libraries, and the press are still struggling with that.
Yeah. Okay, are there any other questions? Maybe another question, or you can raise your hand. Which libraries already have something that is maybe similar to the democratic code, some sort of guideline, red line paper? Okay, I'm seeing two hands.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Do you think it would be, maybe I can ask questions. Do you think it would be, who thinks it would be helpful? Because you all, I saw a lot of hands when you had the same experiences, that there are a lot of difficult situations in the library. Would this be helpful for you? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, lots of thumbs up and hands up. Okay, well, the good news is it's all there. I put the link in the chat for where you can find the original. Keep losing my earphones. The original document, as well as the German translation of the code. I will also link up the practical guide, which is a bit longer, and it's fully in Dutch. So I'm not sure if I can manage to translate it myself, but you all have access to tools these days to make use of it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Barbara Bockmann, is this an actual, do you want to say something, or is the hand still up from the last question? Yes, the latter. But Mirjam, do you want to ask more?
No, I think I just want to say that I really understand that for large libraries, this is something that you can put into practice, not easily, but more easily than for some smaller libraries. If you want some advice, you can email me. I mean, maybe I won't answer within a week, but I can give you tips or because I think it's really, I think it can be really helpful, and I hope that it will support you.
Yeah, and I think the practical guide, as well as the groups and the exchange, would also really help to deal with that level of uncomfortableness that you keep mentioning, which is very true, of course.
Yeah. Well, and we are organizing now learning teams, so there are different libraries doing the same, going through the same process. And the people who are doing that in their own library, they come together once in a while to talk about what are they encountering, what is difficult. So if you know another colleague at another library who's also trying to do the same, it's really valuable to share experiences.
Johanna, again.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again that you mentioned also like starting from the challenges that we all see and we all have to deal with, but also I feel like it's a great chance, as you mentioned, to just find a common ground for all values and get more resilience as institutions, because like that's actually starting from these challenges, that's actually a kind of professionalization we weren't asking for, but it is. And I feel like that's very great to frame it as a more positive development as well.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Frau Meyer-Groß.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I work in a small library in Sachsen, in Deutschland, in Germany. I want to say that we had experience. We developed the open workshop of democracy, so to say, here in the library, and I have a project. And then I wanted to say just a few words about neutrality, because you said a really interesting thing, that you are thinking of this value is something that we should still consider or have or take care of. But we saw the need to define what does neutrality mean actually for libraries. So we didn't concentrate on saying, no, we don't need neutrality, and it's something that, but we concentrate us on what does this neutrality mean for the libraries, and we came to similar conclusion as you already said, like we are not apolitical. We are just not. Yeah, I'm having a mixture of English and German in my head right now. So we don't represent one political opinion, but we are not apolitical in a sense, because we are presenting as a library, we are giving information for a bright spectrum of a wide spectrum of opinions. We need to give this information to people, so to say. They have to have the free Zugang to information. So we talked a lot about neutrality and what are the challenges of neutrality and what are the borders of neutrality, and how the libraries can then work through that in their everyday life, so to say. So we came to develop like a certain behaviors system for our visitors and for the library workers, and also where the neutrality is something that also help us to it doesn't stop us to defend democratical values.
No.
So if we are fordering, I don't know how to say now in English, my
demanding. Demanding?
No, demanding, but stimulating, so to say, stimulating democratic values, actually. That has nothing to do with democracy. Also we can be neutral, but at the same time we say democratic values are our values.
Yeah. Well, I think it's very good that you did this exercise about talking about what does it mean, because that's also where often people seem to have different opinions, but they don't if you define the word. So that's a very good, also in the sense of professionalism, very good to talk about it with each other. But the thing that I think is difficult about neutrality is if as a person, so if we don't look at, if we look at me as a library, if I say I am neutral, that also means that I am not a part of the conversation. I am like the referee, or I'm the mediator. But actually, how can people trust us if we say we are not a part of this world because we are standing outside the lines? I think that sends a strange message. So that is the thing I think is difficult about neutrality. And the other thing is that, of course, if you look at organizations, we are not neutral because we are a compilation of people that have opinions, professional and personal opinions, that have experiences that have made them to who they are and that define the way they handle themselves, the way they do things. So it's sort of, I think you can't be neutral. And I think it doesn't help being neutral, or at least using the word in the sense that I'm defining it now.
Exactly, we are not using in that sense. That's why, as we didn't concentrate on saying neutrality is that, and we are doing it. But what does it mean to us, and what does it mean for the libraries? And I think a lot of libraries in Germany have a different opinion on what neutrality means, and I think that's the biggest thing that was also discussed in Deutsche Bibliotheksverband, or all together. We are working on it almost like last 2 or 3 years. There was a lot of publications 6-7 years ago about democracy work in the libraries here in Germany. So I think what we need is to gemeinsame Verständnis, together to understanding from exactly.
Yeah. But my advice would be to rethink the word. Because I do think that neutral in general in public life means something that says, I'm not part of this. And actually, you don't want to send that message as a library, I think, because if you want to stimulate democracy, then you have to be a part of that. That's the uncomfortableness about it. We are a part of that. Yeah, so maybe I'm hearing libraries in the Netherlands saying we're not using neutral anymore. We're using public. We're just using that word really, or independent, or, well, there are a lot of other words that you could choose that also say something about not having a political agenda or not having a religious agenda, or and being open to everyone, because that's actually what most libraries mean by neutral.
Thank you. So there was another question in the chat about an English version of the practical guide. I don't know, Mirjam, whether you have an English version that you could share with me. Because that might be
no,
easier.
we don't have a full English version. No, maybe that is something to work on,
Okay.
but at the moment we don't. No.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll share the Dutch version in any case, and maybe I'll manage to translate it.
Okay.
Last call for questions. Maybe there are none, and that's okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Mirjam, thank you very much. It was a lot of words, but I thought it was very interesting as well. As always, I will share the slides, or Mirjam will share her slides. I will put them up on the website of the Bibliotheksverband, and also inform everybody who was here today as soon as the video recording of the session is available. And I can also point out that next month We will probably have somebody from Finland as a guest to speak about the timeout method, which was mentioned in the very first session by the Danish colleagues. It's a way of doing group presentations or group discussions, Finnish method. And I can also already announce the session for May, which actually already has a date. So on the 14th of May, at 10 o'clock, we will have Maija Traile from the Latvian National Library, and she will speak about the Riga Reading Manifesto. So this is a document that they put out last October, I believe. The main message is, if people are not able to read, they will not be able to, well, consume texts and make up their minds, form opinions, and therefore democracy is in danger. And she will speak about that process and how the Riga Reading Manifesto will now maybe or probably lead to a national reading strategy, all with in regard and in connection with democracy stabilization, so to say. Yeah, so that's it for today. Thank you very much for
Thank you all for your
being
attention.
here.
I didn't mention it, but and I wish you luck.
Thank you, Mirjam. And yeah, enjoy the sun and the spring. Goodbye.
Goodbye.